Okay, should we make a start? Because it's 6 o'clock. Okay, thank you all and welcome to everybody that has joined us for our cabinet this evening. Okay, item number 1 is apologies for absence. I haven't received any apologies for absence. Item number 2 is urgent business. I haven't been notified of any urgent business. Item 3, declaration of interest. Councillor Bowridge.
Thank you, Chair. As a member of current trustee of Oldham Coliseum, I have to declare an interest in item 6.
Thank you, Councillor Bowridge. Any other member wish to declare an interest? No? Okay. Item 4, public question time. We have 3 members of the public submit questions by the deadline. All of them are on the new theatre, the Oldham Coliseum more generally. If they are here, firstly can I call on Jane Barker to ask her a question if you'd like to do it herself?
Thank you for allowing the question. So the details of the new theatre proposal has just been announced. The plans are nothing like what was originally promised, which was a theatre with a capacity similar to that of the Coliseum. This proposal contains half the seating capacity, and that is not really good enough. How will any theatre company be able to produce financially viable theatre with such a small capacity? Last year, Oldham Coliseum sold 33,000 tickets for the pantomime, but the new venue will only be able to cater for half that number. And that's hundreds of thousands of pounds of lost income, not to mention thousands less visitors spending money in cafes and bars in the town. So where is the ambition and aspirations of Oldham Labour councillors to put Oldham on the map and create a visitor attraction that we can be proud of? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jane, for your question. So the latest proposals have you referenced include a 300 to 350 seat auditorium. These plans have been developed over quite a significant amount of time and many conversations with the Coliseum itself, with the Arts Council, with other arts and culture organisations and members of the community. I think what's important to point out is that running theatres and theatrical organisations are not the expertise of the local authority, and they never are. We empty bins and we cut grasses and we safeguard vulnerable people. The proposals for the new theatre have been made in line with the conversations with the Arts Council and the Coliseum as well. And it is those that came forward to put forward what they think would be a viable theatre going forward. We've also as well looked at other comparable, well-performing producing theatres in other towns, of which there are a number across the country, many of whom have a similar number or even fewer. So this number is not out of the ordinary for what our ambition is to be for Oldham Coliseum, Oldham Theatre to remain a producing theatre. Now, we're still developing final designs. I think it's important to know with local arts organisations and also with external experts. And they will help us as a local authority scrutinise the detailed plans to make sure that they are profitable and it is workable. Keep on having the conversations with technical experts ahead of the planning application. Now, in terms of aspiration and ambition, I think for a local authority to be committed £24 million in the climate of austerity and challenge to our budget is an absolute marker of ambition and aspiration for this town. We've just gone through a budget process where we've reduced our budget by £29 million. You know, it has taken bravery for us as a Labour administration to put down and say we will invest millions of pounds to ensure there is a theatre in Oldham going forward. I don't want my child to grow up in a town that doesn't value arts and culture and heritage, and I don't want that for any other child as well. And we as a cabinet have been really clear about that. And we're investing because we know that theatre in Oldham is an important part of a successful and thriving town centre. And we also have a hugely successful theatrical background in Oldham, and also it's so important for our local communities. And they've told us they want a new theatre in Oldham, and that is why we have put forward these plans. But we've also got to be realistic. A new theatre has to be sustainable and it has to be financially viable. This operator has to make money all year round and not just from one production a year. And I don't want to be sat here in 10 years' time having the same conversation because the new theatre was not financially viable. We have to look at a new model. Theatres have to evolve and they have to change. Now, on the specific issue of the pantomime, which I know for who were brought up in Oldham, you've got children in Oldham, everybody, myself included, has got memories of going to that pantomime, haven't we, at Oldham Coliseum? The attachment, particularly around the pantomime, I know it's of huge significance to Oldhamers. What the council has done, because as you say how popular it is, has offered the Coliseum, or the new theatre, the new event space, which will be in Spindles, which does have a capacity of 750, so it's larger than the capacity at the moment of Oldham Coliseum. And then enable the Coliseum to increase the capacity and get more people in. But given the recent announcement, this has been put on hold, but the offer still is available and it is still there going forward. Thank you. Second public question is from Kevin Leach.
Evening. So, I'm a resident in the borough and I've worked in the arts and at the Coliseum for 17 years. I'm passionate for Oldham and its people. Given the ineptitude of the council over the years in delivering a new theatre in Oldham and planned closure of the Coliseum, what is the council planning to do for the 70 staff who have given so much to the town and invested in it? These skilled workers will be lost and moved elsewhere. Their money they spend and the people that they bring into the town will also be lost. Their faith in the town will be lost also. There is no professional place for them to work in the town of a similar size, so they will go elsewhere, where they will be valued. We struggle now to get a skilled workforce in Oldham because of the law of Manchester, and I'm sure the council is the same. How did the council also envisage recruitment of skilled staff for the new space, given those skilled staff who now reside in the town will have no other option but to seek work outside of the borough? Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin, for the question. I think before I get into a more substantive answer, I think it's important to note that the decision to close the Coliseum and to go through the process to make the staff redundant was one for the Coliseum alone. They are a separate entity to Oldham Council, and they made that decision for decisions that they made. With detailed answers around the staff, I know we've got some questions in a bit, are really a question for the Coliseum and not for the council. However, I, like you, I'm disappointed and I'm upset and I'm sad, like every resident in Oldham, about the Coliseum's decision to close, and obviously the resulting consequences, and I know how difficult it is, and I was there last week to see Chris, since we're in CMO, what their staff is feeling at the moment, because it's come out of the blue for a lot of their staff. Now, you understand why the Coliseum had to make the decisions that it's made, and why they're in the position. As I said, it is an independent business with a charitable status, and the Coliseum have sole responsibility for the employment of their staff, the financial arrangements and the decisions that follow from that. The council has no say in any of those things. These are things that were told to the council and not decided in conjunction with the council. The council has spoken to Equitet, and I met with Equitet myself before the public meeting last week, and we continue to offer all the support we can. All the consultation between staff and the Coliseum is ongoing. But I do want to reiterate, matters of employment of those staff are a matter for the Coliseum, not Oldham Council. So the questions I think we need to be redirected around what support they're giving to staff, which I know they are giving some support to staff. Now, for us as a council, we're committed to a new theatre in town, and the new theatre will provide jobs for local people in the future, and what we can do to support in the short-term future of arts and performance is to commit to using the ring-fence £1.8 million of arts funding we already have. And also, our own funding. Oldham Council did not reduce its funding to Oldham Coliseum, which is also important to know. The decision to close the Coliseum and go through that process was off the back of the Arts Council reducing their funding, not a decision of Oldham Council reducing or removing the funding to Oldham Coliseum. And we are committed to ensuring that money that has been going to Coliseum over a number of years will be retained for theatre in Oldham over the next 3 years with the ring-fence funding as well. In regards to the new base for the Coliseum, I agree. And that's why we're planning the new theatre with them as our new home. The Coliseum have been saying to us now for over a decade that that building is coming to the end of its life. And we've actually got to the point where it's coming to its end, well, it's got to its end of its life, hasn't it? But the plan, which we're aware of and supportive of, was always for the Coliseum to move out of that building. And the plan was to actually move out of that building at the end of this year, the start of 2024. And that was how we understood it and how the Coliseum had planned for it. Fortunately, changes to the Arts Council has meant that's happened an awful lot quicker than anybody anticipated. Now, we continue to hope, obviously, that the Coliseum can play a role in Oldham's cultural life, and we're having conversations with the Coliseum board to support them. Like I say, it's a really difficult time. And what I will say is, the council, Oldham Council, is having daily conversations, both with staff at Oldham Coliseum, with the board of Oldham Coliseum as well, and with the Arts Council, because we want to find a way forward through this. That's exactly it. Thank you for your question. A number of other questions will come forward from Equity. I think Gareth put them in. I don't think Gareth is here, but there's somebody from Equity that would like to ask the questions.
Good evening, my name is Chris Clarkson. I'm speaking on behalf of Equity. There are 9 questions in total, but I'm reading them out as one. Number 1, will you guarantee that the new theatre will be a producing house? Number 2, who is going to run?
If you want, if it's easier, which I think it might be, if you ask me one question, I'll ask. Do you want me to ask one and then I'll answer?
Certainly, I was told to read them out as one, but I can go them
I think
individually.
the point of clarity for people to understand, given our reports, I think it's going to be easy, isn't it, to follow if you ask me the first one now.
Thank you very much. So, will you guarantee that the new theatre will be a producing house?
Okay, so obviously Oldham Coliseum is one of only 32 producing theatres in the country, an absolute badge of honour still for Oldham. Now, it's not within the council's gift to guarantee that that will continue, but it's our absolute ambition that it is. In the paper tonight, and we will see we have committed, we want to commit to ensure it is a producing theatre and that we retain one within the town. Our conversations both with the Coliseum over recent weeks and with the Arts Council, both in terms of ring-fence funding over the next 3 years and what follows the new theatre down on Union Street in 3 years' time, is about ensuring we retain a producing theatre, and we're going to do everything we can to try and make sure that happens.
Number 2, who is going to run that theatre?
Okay, so on the issue of who will run it, the honest answer is we don't know yet. But, you know, Oldham Theatre started out as the Hippodrome 135 years ago. It then became Oldham Met. In 1978, it became Oldham Coliseum. You know, it's not run by the same people in the same way as it has been in the past 135 years, and we have to be honest about that, don't we? But I also have to be honest and say that at the moment we don't know what that looks like yet. Now, the news did take us by surprise, I'm not going to lie, you know, it came out of the blue. We knew there were some concerns, but certainly the timescale that's come for us and the Coliseum as well, I understand, it's happened an awful lot quicker than we expected. We've been planning for the new theatre for some time, particularly the plans that were covered tonight have been in train, and it was always anticipated that that would be at Oldham Coliseum, that would be the home of Oldham Coliseum. Obviously, given recent announcement by Oldham Coliseum and the changes to the Arts Council, we want to ensure we retain that, but that's difficult at the moment, so that is still up in the air. But that is a conversation that needs to be had with Oldham Coliseum and the Arts Council and others over the coming months.
Number 3, what can you or we do to ensure that the Oldham Coliseum Company survives until the new building opens?
Yes.
Thank you. So, I mean, to be completely blunt, it's not the responsibility of the council, and we can't ensure that. The Coliseum is an independent organisation. They have now begun a process, and that is in reality with the board about what happens with that, what decisions that they make over the coming months. Now, what I can say is, like I said before, we are in almost daily dialogue with the Coliseum and with the board as well, to try and support them as they build a new future for themselves. The council have submitted a proposal to the board to help them secure the same future for the Coliseum. We're still working on that and with the Arts Council to try and find a solution.
Number 4. What provision will the council make to maintain a producing theatre company in Oldham operating from the 1st of April 2023, and who will run that producing company if the Coliseum as a company goes into administration?
So I suppose it's similar to what I've said previously. A lot of that is not within the council's gate. The Coliseum are going through a process at the moment, a legal process with their staff. We need to wait until the end of that process comes and continue the conversation with the Oldham Coliseum board, because it is in with their gift about what happens going forward in the short term.
Number 5. How does the council plan for the new theatre to be a viable producing house in the absence of a fly system or theatrical rigging system, which is necessary for a full pantomime production and for many live theatre productions?
Thank you. So, the detailed specifications for the new theatre is yet to be finalised and will be subject to full consultation. We'll go to full planning stage as well. And the work today, as I said previously, I think the Jane's answer has been done and shaped by conversations both with the theatre, by the Coliseum, the Arts Council and other theatre specialists as well. The council has already been in touch with other external advisors and organisations to help us scrutinise the plans as we go through the planning process. In relation to the pantomime as well, as I said to Jane earlier, the Coliseum has been offered the new event space at the Spindles, which will be significantly bigger. As I said at the very start of this, the reality is we're not the experts in running theatre, that lies with the Coliseum and other organisations. We are absolutely led by those organisations, and the plans that have come forward have been very detailed consultation with the Coliseum, and that's all been fed into the cabinet report that is there now.
Number 6. Can the council guarantee the new theatre will be commercially viable for pantomimes with a 300-seat approx capacity theatre?
So the new theatre was to provide new space for performers, but also new space to meet income for the operator through greater front and house provision and more usable, rentable space elsewhere in the building, something that is severely lacking at Fairbottom Street at the moment, and something that has been a source of complaint by people that run Oldham Coliseum at the moment. Modelling work needs revisiting following recent announcements by the Coliseum, but the council is confident that with continued advice from the external specialists and with the fundings, the future of arts and performance in Oldham will continue to be a success. On the specific, yeah, that's fine, that's it. And what I will say on that is what I said earlier on. We have to have a financially viable theatre. It has to be a theatre that has used its space. And the reality is, there were quite serious concerns from Arts Council about the financial viability of Oldham Coliseum. We are custodians of that theatre. The theatre was here long before I came, and here long after I came. But I would not spend millions of pounds of taxpayers' money on something that is not financially viable. It would be absolutely reckless to do that. But theatres have to evolve and they have to change. And the new theatre down on Union Street, conversations we've had with the Coliseum, who've been asking to move out of that building, as I said before, for over a decade, is about how you change and how we have a theatre that washes its face for the future.
Number 7. Has the council produced an assessment of the permanent jobs the new theatre will create, balanced against the job losses from the current theatre, taking into account the lack of need for specialist flight theatre ragging staff?
Number 8.
So I'm unable to answer this at the moment, those are the requirements for the new theatre operator.
Number 8. Has the council produced an assessment for how it will ensure it can hire the skilled staff needed for operating a new theatre, and it will work to stop the loss of skilled staff from Oldham, who will be made redundant from the Coliseum on the 31st of March 2023?
Again, that's something that I can't answer in terms of staffing requirements. That's for a future theatre operator.
Number 9. Is there absolutely no way the council can support the Coliseum to remain open until after the next panto, and then support the company to work peripatetically?
So, as I said earlier on, the council has not changed its support to Oldham Coliseum. The reality is, once that Arts Council funding was lost, it meant that it was no longer financially viable, and that is what Oldham Coliseum has said. Oldham Council have not changed the funding or the support that we've given to Oldham Coliseum over the past 10 years, and that's really clear. Now, so, as we discussed earlier, the plan was always for it to move as well. You know, we always knew come the end of 2023 and the beginning of 24, but maybe that's not been verbalised enough, honestly, that they were always due to move, and the details need to move. Now, once the Arts Council funding went, the Coliseum started the process, but as I said earlier on, the Coliseum started a process not in conjunction with the council. They told the council what they were doing. Yeah, the reality is they cannot continue that Arts Council funding. And like, I feel it just as much. You know, as a resident of the town that's lived here my whole life, that's been to that Coliseum, you know, that hope to take my 2-year-old to that Coliseum in the future, to have this. And even when we lost the funding in November, we never expected, and the Coliseum didn't expect, them to have to close so quickly. We changed the CEO, things changed, we were told they had to wind up that quickly. And that's where we are. And I think it's really important to put across, you know, funding for the council has never changed to the Coliseum. You know, we never wanted them to remove the Arts Council funding. We know how important that theatre is to the town. And now for us, that going forward, we have to invest in a new theatre because Oldham has to have a theatre. We don't want to be a town that doesn't, and one of only 2 is producing theatres. We have to keep it, but we have to plan for a future. But it's a lot of work in a lot of short space of time. The Coliseum are going through a really difficult process, and I know that, and like I say, speak to Chris and spoke to the board. And we'll support them as well as they can. But unfortunately, we didn't reduce our funding, the Arts Council did, and then that changed it, and they're now in a process.
So, item 5, minutes of the cabinet meeting held on the 24th of January 2023, the 13th of February 2023. The cabinet agreement minutes of all meetings.
So, item 5, minutes of the cabinet meeting held on the 23rd of January 2023, the 13th of February
Item 6,
2023.
it's urgent business, investing in a new theatre for Oldham. So, why would you just leave it? Right.
Okay, so all that answers some of the public questions about to this now. Some of the misinformation that's been flying around about the Coliseum and the theatre also provides some clarity to what is a really complex and difficult situation at the moment. That all of us, as Cabinet, remain committed to theatre and culture in Oldham. Now, all of us here know that the Bottom Street Theatre is at the end of its lifespan. To remain on site across the Coliseum and the council millions of pounds over the next few years. That was never intended to be the future of Oldham Coliseum, and everybody accepts that. Sometime the council has been working on plans for a new theatre in the Coliseum with the Arts Council and with other cultural partners. The development of a new theatre has been key to our cultural strategy. Back in 2019-2020, Oldham Council, the Coliseum and the Arts Council jointly agreed that bringing back to life 3 heritage buildings on Union Street, which included the old post office and the Quaker Meeting House, would be the best location in the town centre. Placing the new theatre in the heart of our growing cultural quarter, with the library and the gallery next door, and the old library side currently being redeveloped, so envisages that the Coliseum could move into a new theatre and embark on a new chapter in its long and celebrated history. The plan has always been that the Coliseum would leave Bottom Street Theatre building and continue to perform a range of venues across the borough ahead of the new theatre opening in 2026. And that was always the plan. Following the end of this year, we would move to a peripatetic model. The Arts Council are raised some quite serious concerns about Oldham Coliseum. One of the things they are really complimentary about is the artistic direction of the Coliseum and also the work that they do outside of the Fair Bottom Street and in the community as well. But obviously the difficulties that the Coliseum is experiencing at the moment does complicate these matters. But the reality is the building at Fair Bottom Street is no longer fit for purpose, and we have to think about what happens going forward. The difficulties that the Coliseum had over the past couple of months pushed us to bring this cabinet report forward a few months earlier than planned, because we were committed to theatre in Oldham. While I cannot guarantee anything at this stage, we remain hopeful that the Coliseum can become the key anchor tenant at the new theatre, but that is not within our gift. We are doing everything possible to make that a reality. The Coliseum is an independent organisation with its own board, its own finances and its own management team, and will continue to work with them and support them going forward. As custodians of the town, I see us all having a duty to ensure that we continue to have a theatre, as I said before. Theatre in Oldham, was here long before I or any of us was here, and it should still be here long after we're gone. It's a huge history in Oldham, though it has changed. As I said before, it went from the Hippodrome to the Vet, and then to the Coliseum in 1978, and it will evolve and it will change, but we've got to ensure we have a successful theatre in Oldham going forward. The truth is that the theatre has changed a lot since Oldham Coliseum or Hippodrome first opened 135 years ago, and it will over the next as well. Now, our job as the council isn't to step in and run the theatre. That's not where our expertise lies. We can help them along the journey in many ways and find them with the tools that they need to thrive. Most importantly, with the new building, but it's not for Oldham Council to run that theatre. We absolutely have no vision to run that theatre. Now, we are confident, because of the conversation we've had, that know a lot more than us, which includes the Theatre Trust, Coliseum and Arts Council. This new theatre can be home for a producing theatre company. The report today is asking Cabinet to recommit to a new theatre so that further consultations can take place ahead of the planning application process beginning. It's also asking that the Council formally accepts the £1.8 million in ring-fenced Arts Council funding to provide performance arts and cultural activities across Oldham over the next 3 years. We remain in conversations with the Coliseum Board and are hopeful that a solution can be found which keeps the Coliseum in Oldham as a producing theatre company with its deep connection to the town and its strong artistic heritage. Does any Cabinet member wish to speak? Oh, Elaine, Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. I guess I really just want to echo some of the points that you've already made in response to the questions that have been raised, which is that, as Oldham councillors, most of us grew up in the town, or at least spent some of our formative years there, and we've all got really strong attachments to the Coliseum. We all have really strong memories of going to productions with our parents and our grandparents, and as a Labour administration, we are particularly proud of our heritage. And that is why our cultural strategy is committed to putting culture at the heart of our vision going forward. And I think this paper tonight confirms that we are 100% committed to creating and funding a new theatre, but a theatre that is actually fit for modern audiences, to ensure the future of art and culture in our town is protected for future generations. And I do also think it's important to acknowledge, and I know the leader has already referenced this, but although the Arts Council, which again is not to be confused with Oldham Council, has withdrawn funding for the Coliseum, they do still want to work with the council to provide support. They have ring-fence funds to retain culture and art in Oldham. I think that's a really important message, and I think that's a really important step that the Arts Council has taken. And we will be putting forward a programme of events so that we can continue to operate while the building takes shape, while the new building takes shape, and to make sure that the theatre is a great success going forwards.
Thank you very much, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Jamal?
Thanks, Chair. Like everyone here, I'm extremely disappointed about the situation that we find ourselves in respect of Coliseum. I've got lots of positive memory, in fact some of the best memory with my kids going to the pantomime and enjoying several protections there, and also when I was mayor, I went to several events there And I can say genuinely it was one of the proudest moments of my middle year going there and seeing the productions in the Coliseum. But unfortunately we are where we are. But this report, what it does, it sets out a very clear path in getting a new theatre in Oldham. And I just wanted to reiterate the point that the leader made earlier, which is that £24 million will be the cost of the new theatre. On page 37 of the report, it talks about, 36 of the report, paragraph 2.5, it talks about £6 million coming from the Towns Fund. That means the remaining £18 million will come from Oldham Council. And at a time when, all the financial pressures that we've got in trying to maintain key services, that is a bold move by the council to make sure that the new theatre is delivered, and we're committing to provide £18 million of resources from Oldham Council. So I hope people in the audience can take a little bit of comfort from this, that we are serious and we will do whatever we need to do to deliver a new theatre. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Mushtaq.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think clearly everyone's feeling sad about the situation. The theatre is part of Oldham, it's part of the fabric of Oldham. I attend the pantomimes with family and other events throughout the year, and I think that's a key part. Comments about the pantomime and the impact of the pantomime and the festive period and the income that generates, but actually it's about the usage of the theatre throughout the year as well. And quite often when I did attend, it wasn't as well used as ideally it could have been. For 1 year, it did fall in my portfolio. So we were working closely, I personally was working closely with senior members of staff and the National Portfolio Organisation status that they lost, which ultimately led to the loss of massive amount of funding. A third, as the report says, is what resulted in the situation that we're in now. And I had a relatively recent visit to the Coliseum building, and we talk about the state of the building, but actually it was a dangerous place for people to be. I think this is again coming from senior members of staff, a senior member of staff that showed me around the building, and actually it wasn't fitting for those fantastic actors and people producing, and not only the plays but also the costumes and all the other parts of a play that we wouldn't see or hear about unless you were actively involved in that sector. And it is heartening to see the proposals in the report, because as you highlighted, Madam, I have to commend you on the way you've answered those questions publicly. I was going to do it privately, but I think you've really answered them well, and you've explained the situation. So yeah, I welcome the report. It's a really sad moment for all of us. As I say, it's part of the fabric of Oldham. But moving forward, I think we have to be positive, and we have to look forward to a different type of theatre in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mushtaq. Does any other member wish to speak? No? Okay, Cabinet will consider item 11. Item 7, grant acceptance, City Region Sustainable Transport Settlement. Oh yeah, do we get back? Manchester Street Viaduct refurbishment. Do you want me to wait until Barbara comes back? Let's give it a minute. Okay. Welcome back, Councillor Bramwich. Item 7, grant acceptance, City Region Sustainable Transport Settlement, Manchester Street Viaduct refurbishment. Sorry, Councillor Roberts.
Thank you. Well, this is both good and bad news. So the good news is that we're going to get the money to do the work that we need to do to keep the bypass operating. The bad news is that this will mean that we've got to do yet more major traffic works on the bypass once we start the scheme. I struggled with what the Manchester Street Viaduct was because I think it looks like a flyover. So we're talking about the where the bypass goes over the big roundabout that the tram goes underneath, and you toddle off down the A62 into Manchester. So the report is basically a technical report, as Councillor Jabbar often says, which is just asking us to accept the funding from the CRSTS.
Thank you. Does any member wish to speak? No? Does Cabinet agree with the recommendations in the report?
Agreed.
Thank you. Item 8, Sharp Rates Play and Leisure, approval to award contract from the 1st of April 2023. Councillor Morse.
Thank you. The Sharp Break Play and Leisure contract is a statutory service that provides leisure and development opportunities for children and young people with SEND. It also provides respite for families. It is an absolutely vital service that we need to maintain, and we need to maintain continuity for this service, and the paper seeks approval to delegate responsibility for approval of the contract to the Managing Director for Children and Young People. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morse. Does any Cabinet member wish to speak? No? Okay. Cabinet will consider this item at item 12. Item 9, approval of temporary accommodation framework, which is my item. So in October 2021, Council's temporary accommodation framework was approved by Cabinet. It brought a delivery plan in motion, and the first priority became to establish a framework to help the Council deliver a sustainable and cost-efficient temporary accommodation service to vulnerable Oldhamers and families in crisis. Since then, the Council has been working towards increasing the supply of cheaper, better quality, higher standard alternative temporary accommodation to hotel and B&B and nightly paid accommodation. Given the current high demand, last month Oldham had 369 households in temporary accommodation compared to 254 in January 2022, and the costs associated with delivering a good service. This report now asks for permission to approve the successful bidders under a framework agreement following procurement exercise which commenced last September. Lot 1 is a framework of providers that could increase the Council's supply of nightly paid accommodation for a range of property sizes. Lot 3 is a housing supply framework that would deliver suitable dwellings for the Council to take a short, medium or long-term leasehold interest in for the purposes of providing much-needed self-contained and family-sized temporary accommodation for families in Oldham and those that need it most. It is worth noting for Cabinet that we're not seeking approval for Lot 2 at this time. It was hoped that this lot would be for reputable contractors that could undertake repair and maintenance work on the Council's temporary accommodation stock. However, this had to be deferred due to poor levels of interest and engagement from local contractors and stakeholders. We hope to do more consultation with local contractors ahead of remarketing these opportunities. Does any Cabinet member wish to speak? No? The report will be considered at item 13. Item 10, exclusion of the press and public.
Moved. Seconded.